Mac Miller remains one of the most loved artists in all of music, and it feels like with the passing of time, more and more people are starting to appreciate his work, which speaks volumes to the evolution that Mac had as an artist, because this really wasn't what Mac's career was supposed to look like when it started. The success of Mac Miller really began in 2010 with the success of his mixtape Kids. Although not his first project, it was the first mixtape that made Mac a name to look out for. Mac Miller capitalized on the circles around the internet that were hyping up frat boy rap, a style of rap that is mostly a thing of the past now, and although lyrically for Mac Miller he didn't really stand out, his beats were top tier, at least in terms of like college rap. Kids showed a great range in sound, different to that of the typical frat boy rap. The tape experimented with the jazzy sound, it was laid back at times, and at other times it was energetic. And just a year later he was part of Double XL's freshman class, and he kept building hype with mixtapes that expanded on the hype that Kids got. It was lowest common denominator music, but for his fan base it worked. He kind of became the poster boy for the type of music that's popular within college circles. It's kind of just vibes and nothing else after that. His debut studio album expanded on that type of sound as well, as in 2011 he'd released Blue Side Park.
Hey, I got these Ray-Ban shades, kinda look like something landing with rockets.
This album was a James Harden type of step back, I am not gonna lie. And what I mean by that is that it really seemed like Mac Miller had devolved. It had this borderline EDM production that aged terribly, and to me it's a reminder of the worst things about 2011 in music. People hated it at the time as well, so it's not just me. However though, the hate wasn't universal. Despite a poor critical reception, Blue Side Park was a success, as the album would sell over 140,000 copies first week. Still though, the reception for the project left Mac Miller with dissatisfaction. He realized that this college party type rap wasn't gonna be necessarily successful in the mainstream, and he just wanted people to respect his art, which meant that for his next project Mac Miller would take a different approach to hip-hop, and more specifically his style of writing.
I know I love you, I ain't tryna let those words slip, pure bliss.
This new approach to music came forward in the way of 2012's Macadelic. The tape featured more substantial songs, with the likes of Cameron and Lil Wayne being featured, as well as newcomers like Joey Badass and Kendrick Lamar.
But you won't hear it, even if your ears was pissed with Beats by Dre.
Whether it be because of features or Mac himself, the project held more substance than any of Mac's other projects up to this point. Mac had a long way to go in terms of his pen, but honestly, all things considered, this was a good start. And credit to him, because his next studio album also continued the forward progression of his pen game.
Grabs a 40 from the corner store, begins to contemplate.
The college rap beats were gone now. The flows had more variety, and the lyricism had more substance than they did before.
Passport, filling it up with stamps to the camp upon my land, swam the rivers.
But honestly, I don't like it as much as other people do. Like, I don't know, I just don't get it yet. It's cool compared to his previous works, but I think like a lot of his later work is much better than this. So, I don't know. The next Mac Miller mixtape would release a year later with Faces.
Contemplating suicide like it's a DVD.
This tape is way darker and way more substantial than any of Mac's previous work, because this project really takes a deeper dive into Mac Miller's mental health and the constant battle that was held.
Yeah, should've died already. Faces.
Powered by the pressures of being famous at such an early age, Faces also shows a little bit of Mac's increasing dependency with drugs. Still though, all in all, Faces was one of the best mixtapes of the decade. It was a good listening experience on both sides of the coin. The production reflected the drowned out lyricism of the tape, which showcased the best of Mac as a producer and his improvement as writer. Although we can now look at Faces as a prelude of what was to come, at the time the project may have seemed like the turning point that Mac Miller needed, as after that he kind of made some more upbeat music for a while.
It's a weekend, we going out tonight.
Good AM was Mac Miller's next studio album, and it reflected the happier side of Mac Miller. He said he was feeling better around this time, and you know, happy people make happy music. I think. I don't actually know.
I'm too high, you can't reach me with the cell phone.
This album kind of flies under the radar when talking about Mac Miller and his best works. It's kind of like if you made a more modern and mature version of Kids with better production and lyricism. And the relatively good vibes continued going forward with the Divine Feminine.
Same box for the mail, same hamper for the laundry.
This is a great body of work in terms of like the execution that was put into this album. Brilliant.
We don't need to worry, we ain't in a hurry, rushing in.
The concept that Mac carried for this one was telling the stories about the woman in his life and what he learned from them. But honestly, for me, it just stands out for Anderson .Paak.
I can't keep on losing you.
I just love that hook. It's one of my favorite features from Anderson, man.
Wait, we was just hanging.
Anyways, this album was mostly inspired by the fact that he was dating Ariana Grande at the time, which reminds me, in 2013, Mac Miller had his biggest hit alongside Ariana Grande. Anyways, yeah, they were dating, and Divine Feminine was like a high peak in terms of morale. But this was basically the last time we got a happy Mac Miller project, or a relatively happy one at least. Because in 2018, Mac Miller broke up with Ariana Grande, part of that having to do with his addiction and dependency on drugs. An addiction that would be expanded on in Mac Miller's Swimming. If Faces was a dark look into a person's mental health, Swimming was him going back in that circle and expanding on what it meant to battle with those mental health issues.
Need to lie no more. Nowadays all I do is shine, take a breath and ease my mind.
Mac Miller's 5th studio album is shockingly honest and truthful about what it feels like to be in that deep state that he was in. And honestly, not many albums can do what Mac Miller did with this.
Looking in my dreams, who I wanna be.
Because despite how dark the album can be at times, there was still hope for better days. He was swimming instead of drowning. The album was powerful, and it became even more powerful after he passed, because it meant that Swimming was the last album that Mac Miller would release while he was alive. And it became poetic because of tracks like 2009.
Yeah, they ask me what I'm smiling for. Well,
a song where he reflects on his life and looks back to the year when Mac Miller became Mac Miller. Whether he knew it or not, this song essentially broke down his career story, his evolution, his redemption in the world of music, and he basically pulled down the curtain as his career came full circle.
Let's show you how we do this.
Circles is Mac Miller's final album as of right now. It was released posthumously, and it continues the narrative of Swimming, as it was supposed to be the second part of a trilogy. My last video did like really bad, so I just got to working on this one like immediately after I uploaded the last one. Anyways, yeah. Shout out to J Dilla. And yeah.